This collection was generously given to me by Rano bourgeois, the son of Maria Theresa Duncan, the great dancer and adopted daughter of Isadora Duncan, known as the mother of modern dance. This is a picture of Maria Theresa, and it's signed by her to Rano, mon cher, con amour, mama. I have a letter of permission by Rano bourgeois stating that this letter is to acknowledge the important work that Pamela DeFina is doing on publishing material on Maria Theresa. I give her my complete permission to use any or all the material as she sees fit without reservation. Rano bourgeois. When I wrote the book, it was all intuitive, but it was at the time that I was working with Theresa right after her death in 1987. She passed away, and I said, oh, I must write right now, because I just don't know what's going to happen later in life, and it's very important. Pamela DeFina began her dancing studies at the age of 5 at Imperial Studios in Palm Beach, Florida. At age 16, she received a trainee at Harkness Ballet. She made her debut in Duncan dancing with the Maria Theresa and Isadora Duncan Heritage Dance Group in February 1979 as a special protege of Maria Theresa Duncan. I was searching intuitively for the dance of Isadora Duncan. I never saw anyone who had performed it before. I saw the one movie that she did, and I read her book, My Life. So I said, I just have to find it because it expressed what, my soul in movement, based on the works of art that I studied in Florence. And so I was searching all over for her, and then I went to Paris. And I went to her brother's gallery, Raymond Duncan Gallery on Rue de Seine. And there sat her great-granddaughter. And she told me, she says, well, the most astute person that you can learn the dance from was Maria Theresa, the last of the 6 Isadorables. And you can find her in New York at the Y. So I went there, and then that's when I first saw her perform. I went to a performance, and I just couldn't believe it. I was so moved by her presence and her power on the stage. I got confused, and I said, oh, I thought Isadora Duncan died. Because she seems just like her, what you would think about her. And she really radiated, the same spirit as Isadora. And it was a magnificent piece, of Franz Liszt, Les Funérailles, what she had taught me later. And then so we met, and we had this beautiful, beautiful meeting. There was a meeting of souls, a spiritual meeting, and then it was like a family member. And then people used to ask if she was my mother, because we resembled each other and we got along so well. And she always said, sometimes you're closer to other people than members in your own family.
You referred to her as being one of 6 Isadorables.
Yes.
What does that mean?
That was the 6 dancers that Isadora Duncan adopted. 6 that took on her name and that carried on her dance after she died. And she went to Germany, and she chose Theresa because she saw her in a Christmas pageant, a recital, dancing. Isadora came to my hometown, the beautiful Baroque city of Dresden, for performances in January 1905. At the time, my sisters and I were dancing in a Christmas fairy tale, much like the Nutcracker Suite. Since she was looking for children for the newly formed school in Berlin, she came to one of our simple childlike performances in a white Grecian tunic with a stole wrapped around her body and up over her head like a white angel. She told us that she was Isadora Duncan and that she wanted to take me away to her school. She invited my horrified mother and all of my sisters and me to her performance the next day. The huge audience in the theater was spellbound, and my mother, realizing the beauty of it, said to me, "My dear child, do you want to learn to dance like that?" And I said softly, "Yes." She replied, "It means you will have to leave me." 2 days later, January 5th, 1905, Several others Isadora had collected in a similar fashion, and I went to her hotel. Gordon Craig opened the door and seeing us said, "Isadora, your children are here." They had an education in arts and the humanity, because Isadora called it her dance of the future. And she taught them. They had great works of art, statues, you know, and the Greek and Roman and Renaissance paintings around them, so that they would absorb the beauty and harmony and movement of the statues and have that in their mind's eye to make movements. And then they gave them an education in music, all the classical masters, Chopin and Beethoven and Schubert, and she was the first to use all these classical musicians to dance to. Theresa returned to the word classical because she said it was classical because it talked about the classical Greek mythology, the classical musicians, and the classical artists of the Renaissance, Greek, Roman, and Renaissance. It was classical, but because she was the first woman that broke from the ballet and a new form of movement, they called it modern. She took first one to take the shoes off, ballet shoes, wear Greek tunics, and dance to classical musicians. But there was a definite technique to it. So that's why they called it modern. But Theresa went back and during her career called it the classical dance. I have numerous letters from Isadora to Maria Theresa and from Theresa to Isadora, as well as to Irma Duncan. And in 1965 she wrote to Irma Duncan, "I dance with the spontaneity and the radiancy and the holy fire of the true artist. If it were not so, I could not have danced to the great compositions of Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. Emulated, I am in the music, and the music is in me. I dance, and creatively I let arise apparitions that are the images of my trembling soul, now dark, now radiant, now cast in gloom, now fiery, now soaring." Then there were several letters from Isadora to Theresa, which she stated, "No one understood the great plans I had for you all and the wonderful dances I visualized to be performed at a great occasion when the children of the world will lead the way to the new life. Love, Isadora." And then is a wonderful brochure of hers entitled A Classic Dance Festival, presenting a cycle of 12 concerts, different programs, dedicated to the spirit of tragedy and to the classical ideal in music, dance, and poetry. So here you have 12 different recitals, dances that she created from the great classical musicians. Bach, Beethoven, Gluck, Tchaikovsky. This is what the New York Times has said. In May 24th, 1937 is when she presented this. There is here the vital spark with which Isadora enkindled the dance arts. Maria Theresa succeeded in transcending the limitations of her external materials by the integrity of her emotional experience and her extraordinary musical sensitiveness. This is what Theresa wrote, What is the Classical Dance? A great deal has been written about the dance form, which Isadora Duncan rediscovered, and I have been pursuing in the last decades with equal fascination. For all those who actually have been able to penetrate the mysteries of the classical dance, it is easy to say that it is not a system of steps, but rather spontaneous perception of life's perennial values, compounded tragedy and joy, to use Nietzsche's words, underlying always life's experience and necessary to the very creation of any real art. Since this attitude is also the secret of the great composers, their work serves ideally as the essential life tissue of the dance, because the concordance of music is the essential current which carries the course of the dance to new vistas. As old as the Western world's root in ancient Greece, and as young as the coming future. Theresa was such a deep and profound and graceful and very wise person. You were in her company and you were lifted up to another plane.
At what stage in her career were you introduced?
I met her in 1979 till 1987.
So you were with her throughout that period?
Yes. It took a long time to understand her choreography. She created hundreds of pieces, as you see here. And she was going to the studio until she was in 90 because she worked on her own pieces. When I go to the studio with her, she was working on this one, she worked on Tchaikovsky and Sibelius. She never stopped it because she said it was a way of life, it was a way of living. And she said, well, it's too bad that we didn't meet earlier, you know. And not many people have studied with Theresa. Now there's an interest. And it's what Theresa wanted, and she wanted me to carry on with it. There was just too beautiful and strong a bond, you know, that we had, and a purpose. And it was very spiritual. I have a signed card from Maria Theresa to Pamela Exotica Canamora. These are some of the tributes, you know, that people said about her. And Isadora said, yes, Theresa, you have the imprint of Dionysus, kiss on your brow. And Eleanor Duse, you know, the great actress, she says, tu hai la fiamma sacra, you have the sacred fire in you. And I guess must have been a journalist. Again and again last evening, it seemed to me that I was watching Isadora herself, as I saw her dance some 40 years ago. The physical resemblance to my memory of her was breathtaking. Same thing I experienced. Yeah. The intensity of the effect was identical, but I always realized that it was you, not she, that was dancing, that you made her concept your own. You have developed it, have carried it forward into Provences where she did not and could not venture. This is the miracle, that after Isadora there should come one who can lift our spirits and by her beautiful dancing take us up to the heights of beauty. She touches our souls to the quick and fills us with exultant joy. Her name is Maria Theresa. She was a marvel for people to watch. Her gestures were spontaneous and were in harmony with the music, because when she worked with me, she stressed the idea of understanding the music, whether it was Chopin or Beethoven, or you have to understand the psyche of the musician to understand, you know, why the subject matter, why he was creating the piece, in order to feel it emotionally. When I first met her at the Y, she had this company for just 2 years. It wasn't that long. The Heritage Group, Isadora Maria Theresa Heritage Group. So this is To Pamela with Love, Maria Theresa. So I did this in here. This was the Beethoven 7th. And then later she taught me the Allegretto, where she said, now this is your dance, the light soul leading the darker shades of the soul to the light. And she would always say these kind of things, and with the Funeral March and Presto was like the whole philosophy of religion and the death and resurrection thing. And she said, well, now, you know, when you feel deeply, that's life, when you feel deeply.
You have collected a great deal of material about her over the years. What are some of the pieces of material that stand out most for you?
Well, the Edward Steichen photos, you know, that I have here, and I was given the permission from the Joanna Steichen archives when I published my book. This one's, you know, of Isadora in the center, Theresa and Anna Duncan on the Acropolis in Greece. This one is Isadora on the Acropolis, and this is Theresa. Now these photos, this one and this one called Windfire, I just gave to female artists in history. These two photos with a bio, with what I wrote about what it was like to work with her, how I learned the dances through her. She taught the dances, but it was more spontaneous. You didn't quite understand it until I worked with her privately. And then I understood and could create her pieces, because it was a special kind of technique that she invented herself. It was called musical drama. And no one else, even Isadora, didn't do this. It was similar to Isadora's idea, but it was her invention.
How would you describe musical drama?
Well, as I said, understanding the music entirely, the composer, why he wrote the music, what is the theme, the emotional theme? Is it tragedy? Is it fear? Is it joy? Is it love? Whatever. And then you have to, feel it, it's like going inside it like a prayer, almost like a prayer and a meditation. And after a while, the music starts, and then you of course I understood the movements because I studied the art.
But you had training in
ballet. Yeah, I did.
Was that helpful?
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't been able to just jump right into it. The way working with her was like she made it become your own. But this did not. This takes years. This wasn't a kind of ordinary kind of rehearsal where you have a technique. Right. And it was something that she brought out your own creativity and own uniqueness. I mean, and that's what she wanted to do.
It sounds like it was an internal force that you would express externally, but it had to come from inside.
And great study and being, understanding the music, and it's intuitive. It's not a cognitive.
Do you think that was a sign of the times, in that it kind of parallels what might have been going on in terms of the teachings of Stanislavski and
that she was at one with Isadora was very close. They worked together.
Did they?
Yes. He even said, I have that in here, that he created his method of acting was her method of putting the body into movement through going within.
When Maria Theresa passed on, you felt you had to share this.
Yes, because this is what I spent all the time with her, and I know that it was a very, very rich experience. I was the only one that had it because I worked with her the longest of anyone, and the closest, so I understood it. Recalling her dancing in Greece in 1920, she remarked, I stand transfixed in contemplation. In the precinct of the temple, I raise my arms to the sky. The sun melts in a splendor of burnt gold. The evening breeze sighs among the columns against the flaming sky. I dance the glory of the heavens and of the human spirit, and my dance becomes a prayer, an invocation and a benediction. So my dancing reveals the intimation of yet a greater spirit that moves me to dance. It demands a great soul to dance great music and project his inherently magnanimous spirit. And that is the secret of my dancing, to feel deeply, to touch life, to be as the flame in the wind. All this imaginative, expressive dancing was based on the music as I felt it, dancing with my body aglow and tingling with life. She always said, study the lives of the musicians, understand their psyche and the psychology of the piece of music. Depending on which emotion the music evoked, fear, anger, joy, revolt, this initial feeling triggered a corresponding sequence of movements that flowed of its own volition, completing a musical phrase. Maria Theresa often told me the dance needs a new spirit. She was the new spirit. The art of the Isidorian dance resurrected through her. Isadora, who died at 50, was tragically strangled by the same red silk scarf that had symbolized life for her as a woman and in her art. She was haunted by death until it finally snatched her suddenly. Teresa represented the positive, joy-filled, exalted side of Isadora. No one after Isadora was capable of portraying Isadora's art with the depth of understanding and creative genius as Maria Theresa. She was the personification of all the wisdom of the ancient sages, the great ones of mankind, expressed through the art of the dance. She was the flame in the wind, the living manifestation of beauty and serenity and grace, exalted to a virtually divine order, speaking her own language, yet always gently moving in rhythm to the sound of a higher order, expressing love, humanity, joy, and a greater generosity, inspiring all who were in her presence. She was the way and the light.